You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us this week in America. Our website, thisweekinamerica.us. As mentioned, our guest on the program tonight, author L.R. String Garner. He was born in New Zealand, spent the majority of his working life in the New Zealand Army. This included 2 periods of active service in Borneo and Vietnam. During his service, he co-authored books such as Regulations and Standing Orders. On retirement, he wrote a number of short stories, entered them in competitions, received nice compliments, but no prizes. His book, The Golden Princess, was written over a period of 10 years, a chapter every 3 months for granddaughters and grandnieces, in order to keep the spreading family in touch with each other. And L.R. String Garner with us on the program today to talk about the book, The Golden Princess. String, welcome to the program, sir. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Rick.
Coming all the way from New Zealand on the program today. So it's not just This Week in America, it's This Week in the World as we talk with String by Skype from New Zealand. Let's go back and talk about this pleasure that you've always taken in writing, which goes back to the early days with your mother instilling that in you. Talk about that influence and that love you had for reading and writing at a very early age.
How did I start writing, is what you mean?
Yes.
Well, it's actually very interesting, and it goes back a long way. To about when I was 12 years old, in fact.
Wow.
Because what happened was I was in a class, we were preparing for scholarship examinations at the end of the year, and our teacher said to us one afternoon, for homework tonight, write an essay. And that was that. No help, no guidance. So that evening after dinner, I was sitting at the table with my pad and pencil and a blank mind. What can I write about? And my mother picked up, obviously, that there was something wrong. And pencil sat beside me and started writing. And after about 20, 30 minutes, she finished her essay and she ripped it out and gave it to me. And so I was very chuffed about that. But I was surprised to read that the book started about a 12-year-old sitting at a kitchen table with his homework in front of him. That was me. That was the essay. And that was a lesson I learned then, and I've stuck with it ever since, that you don't have to go looking for outer spaces or wild animals. You can use the real life around you. And this is how I based The Golden Princess, particularly in the early chapters, taking life around us as it is and how we deal with it.
Yeah, there are so many lessons in the book. It's called The Golden Princess. The website is goldprincess.net. And, of course, you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly. L.R. String Garner is our guest on the program today, coming to us via Skype from New Zealand in talking about the book. It's a thrilling tale of magic and sorcery and revolves around a girl, Alice. Talk about the main character. Talk about Alice. It's a fascinating character, and we see her evolve during the course of the book. Talk about who Alice is.
Alice is a normal girl, but she was an only child. And a lonely only child, being brought up in a group of adults, of course, and being in a royal family, they are limited as to what they can do because of the publicity around them and that sort of thing. So she has her little problems to face, and she has to overcome them in her own way. And so she goes about doing it. And the very first chapter, of course, is introducing the character. A simple thing, loneliness. How do you overcome loneliness? And if you're only a young child, an 8-year-old, you've got some interesting things to think about.
Yes.
And Alice has to work out how to overcome this problem, which she does in her own way. But it's in a normal, natural way that she has to do this. And of course, the question of royalty is at the back of everybody's mind all the time, because as soon as she's identified as a royal, there are problems like paparazzi and all these sorts of things. So she has to conceal that part of it. from some people, not from everybody, of course. And as she gets older, she has to go through the various programs associated with royalty, as well as live a normal, natural life and an enjoyable life. And so the book gradually develops as she gets a bit older, the different factors she has to face and how she overcomes them. But of course, when you're living in a big house, then there are some other little things that go on as well, particularly if it's a big house that was built many years ago. There are some strange things going on in these old, big houses. And once again, she picks up on that and the things that happen in the house.
Yeah, it's interesting. She finds that when she has an ability to communicate without words and to see ghosts, so she realizes that she has these supernatural powers, doesn't she?
Well, they are given to her by the people that she meets, or the creatures that she meets. They help her, they endow her with these various powers that she's able to use. And of course, she has some interesting situations where she can use them. And that takes her up through schooling and college, university, and into adult life.
Yeah, she's got this ability to save the people around her. There's a great part of the book when she's with a friend, and he sees this transformation of Alice basically in front of his eyes as he saves her. So she does have this ability. Talk about she's got a goddess, a fairy who guides her.
What guides her? Well, generally it's common sense, but of course once you get into these otherworld creatures and people, the story changes. You've got to be able to accept and adapt. And in her case, she's given tasks, or she gets tasked that she's got to use these abilities to overcome problems or to help people.
Yeah, she has the ability to use her powers rather than have her powers use her. And how difficult was it writing this character to reflect that?
Well, this is where my mother came into it again. The lesson that she gave me so many years ago about taking normal situations for a start.
All right.
That was a huge help. And so that chapter by chapter, they are normal situations. And of course, my own experiences comes into some of them as well. There is a military flavour to it. So having a military background, of course, was responsible for that.
Yes.
And knowing what the royal families have to put up with, it's obviously the English family it's based on, English royalty, although Elba was not recognised as a country, well, it was a few thousand years ago. And I build it from there and gradually extend the powers, the strength of the powers that she's able to use, and how she can influence people and events with the powers that she's got. And eventually, of course, comes the human condition of girl meets boy, and how she gets on there, and how she deals with other university students, for example, the cheeky ones and the good ones.
Yes.
And how she overcomes little problems with them in some very interesting ways.
It's an exciting, a thrilling, and intriguing book. It's called The Golden Princes. The author, L.R. String Garner, is our guest on the program today. His website is goldprinces.net. Information at his website on the book. The book's, of course, available at Amazon and all the usual book outlets. And you can link on directly with String's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. The book is edgier and fresher than the usual fairy tale. Talk about how you went about doing that, because if you're thinking, okay, this is just another fairy tale and it follows the fairy tale formula, you'll be disappointed. Actually, you'll be impressed because it doesn't. It's much, like I said, edgier and fresher than the normal fairy tale. Where did that come from? Where did that story? How did you develop the style?
Well, once again, I can only refer back to that great lead that my mother gave.
Back to Mom again, yes.
From there, but because I was quite good at school, I have had this ability to read and write from childhood, and of course that has helped me through my military career as well. And I was involved with regulations and standing orders. I became an instructor at the School of Administration in the New Zealand Army. And when you're doing that sort of thing as an Army instructor, you've got to use your imagination
Yes.
quite a bit. And it actually helps your personality as well, because in my case, I'm a fairly quiet sort of fella. And I found that if you introduce a little bit of humour here and there, it can make quite a difference. And one of the things that I've done now over quite a number of years is in the shopping malls, down the passage, there's usually a little block of seats where husbands can sit while their wives are in at the appropriate shops. And normally when you go to these places and see them sitting there, they're sitting in silence, staring straight ahead.
Yes, or down at the floor.
Yeah, well, you walk into there and say, this is what I do. I march in with a loud voice and say, this must be husband's corner for us to wait. And I'll plot. But as soon as you say that, that sparks the conversation going. And suddenly everybody's chatting to one another. And it's quite an interesting situation to have. And this does work, because I've had a number of situations. But one that was particularly interesting was when I was holding the door open at the mall for my wife to go through, and a sales lady came through and was chatting to my wife about something or other she was trying to sell to her. And my wife turned to me and told me that this lady was trying to interest her in some item or another. And I turned to this lady and put on a stern face and said, "Get thee behind me, temptress." Well, she burst into laughter, and she had a great giggle with that one. But this little touch of humour goes down very well in many situations.
Yes, it goes a long way, and those stories and other great stories you can find on String's website, the blog section. The website is goldprinces.net. The book we're talking about is The Golden Princes. The book is available, information at the website. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly. Go to Amazon or any of the usual places for books and be able to get information and to order that. I mentioned that the book was written over a period of about 10 years, and that every 3 months you would write a chapter, and this was done basically to keep in touch with a spreading family. Talk about, most people sit down and write a book, and this took a 10-year period. How difficult was that to maintain this thought process for 10 years, or did it work to your favor because you'd write something and then you'd have a chance to reflect on it and see where you're going to go from there?
Well, the reason for the book really was what my mother was after. In her later years, she kept telling us, don't let the family get separated, because we were spreading. I was one of 9, and I have a brother and sister who had moved across to Australia, and their families were over there. And we were scattered through the country in New Zealand as well. And so, following my mother's wishes, I thought, how can I help keep the family together? And one of my hobbies was writing short stories and entering in competitions, which was fun. And so I decided what I could do was this business of writing. And in fact, one of the things that helped trigger it was a tour my wife and I were doing, and we went through, I think we were in Minneapolis at the time, just for a couple of nights, but we met a lady with a young daughter, and she was in exactly the same situation as our mother had sort of predicted, that her family had split up, and her poor daughter was lonely, and they were heading off to visit relatives. And I thought to myself, now, that is the sort of thing that is going to happen. This is what our mother had been talking about. And it just so happened that I had written a story, a short story, which turned out to be chapter 1 of the book, was The Lonely Child. And it was that young girl in Minneapolis that sort of sparked that activity.
Interesting.
And when I'd written the first chapter, I realised that you can't just sit down and write a book. It takes quite a long time.
Right.
So this is I decided on the 3-month intervals that I would do one every 3 months. And of course, when I posted them out to the granddaughters and the great nieces, I included a covering letter for the rest of the family. And I was also able to get old photographs and print them onto the back of the sheets as well. So it became quite a family history in a way. But the letters were about what was happening within the family, who was going where, and so on. But to do it to that extent, you cannot do it sort of once a week or once a month. It takes quite a bit of time and thought. And so this is why I settled at the 3 months. And also learned, of course, that when I posted the letters to the girls, I put stickers on them. And the girls, they were for the girls, and the girls got their own personal letter, even though they had to share it. They would grab their letter and head off to the bedroom to read the letter from Uncle String. And
what a great family legacy that you've been able to do this for them, and we can all sort of peek into your world and enjoy the book. The book is The Gold Princes, many surprises along the way, an astonishing ending that we won't give away. You'll have to read the book to get that information. The Golden Princes, L.R. String Garner, met or so left in the program. The book is called goldprinces.net. Talk about the reaction of the family. The granddaughters and the great nieces had to be thoroughly excited about the fact that you did this, but after they read it, it's like, wow, this is a good book.
Yes, that has happened. The mothers, essentially, for the youngest ones anyway, they would read the story to the younger ones, and they started making up. They kept the stories, made up the folder to retain the story as it was. So there are a number of them like that, spread around through the family. And also, when I had the book published, I'm aware of one lady, actually a teacher, and she read the book to her class. I believe they were 10 and 11-year-olds, and it's an Auckland school. So I'm aware that at least one school has had the book read to them, and this is the sort of basis of family history, if you like.
Yes, and there are so many lessons that you get from the book. It's a fascinating book for children and children at heart. And I got about 30 seconds left in the program. I've got to ask, are you working on book number 2?
Yes and no.
Oh.
I'm having tough time because I've got a novelette ready called Twin Spit. It's about a twin-engine Spitfire of the Second World War. And actually written it, but I've got to retype it and before I can send it in. But of course, it's nothing to do with princesses or anything like that. It was just to do about an idea that I had that the Spitfire, of course, from the Second World War originally, wasn't powerful enough. And so we wound up with an English aircraft with an American engine. And it became a very famous aircraft. But I have worked with the New Zealand Air Force quite a lot on air supply, and I reasoned that a Spitfire with 2 engines would be much faster and much stronger and much more capable fighter aircraft than a Spitfire with 1 engine. A bit like the Mustang. It was a British aircraft, American engine. It was all the other way around. An American aircraft with a British engine. And by combining those attributes, they produced very, very good aircraft in the Second World War. Very famous aircraft. And this is the sort of thing that goes on, that by using your imagination, something you think of at the, in the odd moment, take a note of it, and you can expand on it and write a book.
It
goes
back to those lessons at the kitchen table back with Mom, and I look forward. Good luck with it in writing that. We'll stay in touch. We'd love to have you back to talk about that. L.R. String Garner, our guest on the program, coming to us from New Zealand. The book is called The Golden Princes, a book that follows a young girl named Alice as she's summoned to defeat an evil beast that threatens to ruin her life and her family. The book is a great read for children of all ages. String's website is goldprinces.net. The book, of course, available at Amazon and the usual outlets for books. Information at String's website. And you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to the website. String, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Excellent job. Congratulations on the book, The Golden Princes. And we look forward to having you back in the program. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Rick. Thank you.
It has been our pleasure. Once again, the name of the book, The Golden Princes. L.R. String Garner, our guest. The website is goldprinces.net. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.